Hey there, Susie here. Would you like to move your business forward in a way that excites you again without starting from scratch, and even if something feels off right now? I'm hosting a free masterclass called The Business Crossroads. Now, this is for established business owners who've built something solid but are starting to question what's next and don't want to make the wrong move. I'll help you step back, get perspective, and see what's really going on in your business right now. It starts soon, and you can join me for free at businesscrossroadsmasterclass.com. That's businesscrossroadsmasterclass.com. I'd love to see you there. Hello. Welcome to the Her Business Podcast. My name is Susie Daphnis. I'm your host. I'm the CEO at Her Business, and I cannot wait for you to hear a very special conversation today with my guest, because there's no denying that there has been a major shift in content and communication rules for women business owners. And the trend that we're seeing lately can be summed up in one single word: more. More posts, more newsletters, more videos, more articles, more. And because of that, it's become harder to stand out, harder to be remembered, and harder to cut through the noise in a way that builds trust with your audience. And that's because when everyone can produce content in seconds using a few ChatGPT or Claude prompts, your content, it stops being the differentiator. Instead, your story becomes what cuts through the noise, the specific lived human story that only you can tell because only you have lived it. But how do you know what stories to tell in business? How can you use storytelling as a brand, as a business that has grown beyond your startup story, beyond your founder story, beyond your origin story? And how do you capture stories in a way that scales your business and reflects your evolution as a leader? My guest today recently joined us at the Ready to Lead Summit to share a fantastic masterclass that I get to share with you. She has spent her career helping business leaders and companies not just tell the stories of how they started, but to define and tell the stories that are going to help them grow and scale today. She's a Gracie Award-winning former Today Show producer. She's the co-founder of My Story Pro, and we're going to talk about what that is in a moment. And she's one of the most authentic thinkers I've ever encountered on what it means to lead with story in an age of AI. She's here to share her brilliance on evolving your story as your business evolves, and why your lived experience is the one thing that no algorithm can replicate. So here we go. Hey, Patrice, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm excited for this conversation because I have experienced the work you do via the platform that you have, and I know how important your message is for the women who are watching here today. So to give everyone a little bit of context, other than the introduction that I've just done of you, I want to say that you have worked with many high-performing founder-led businesses in numerous ways. What is the clearest sign to you that a business has outgrown its original story, even if revenue is still great, things are flowing, but that's the situation?
Okay. So how does someone know that their business has outgrown their original story? So there's a few different concepts there, because if you strip that back and you strip back your business to the studs, most likely you started your business because you saw something that wasn't being solved, or you knew that you could bring a different point of view or a different perspective to the industry that you were already in. Quite often, not always, but quite often, especially when we're talking about women, we tend to be a bit mission driven. So usually when you start something, it's because something wasn't working for you before in your old life, and you wanted to start something in a different way to design your work, usually around your life. So the value of why you started your business, that why doesn't usually change, because that is really like the center. That is like your value North Star of your business. However, as you grow, and quite often when you're starting, maybe it's just you're wearing 50 hats, you can't really afford to hire anyone, maybe you have a contractor here or there, but as you start getting a groove on, oftentimes that original, maybe I was in my closet doing podcasts, kind of, very relatable story, right? It's a relatable story to when you're first starting out, and especially if you're a solopreneur and, you're doing everything yourself, that story tends to hit really well with usually the audience that you're attracting in the beginning. But as you grow, quite often your business can get a little bit more sophisticated, and maybe you are pulling in higher end clients or enterprise type clients. And that sort of homegrown type story doesn't resonate in the same. So what I always advise people, if you are at that inflection point in your business, and I could use myself as actually a very just short example. Like, I tell a story about how I wear hearing aids, and I hid the fact that I wore hearing aids literally my whole life. I was in TV. I felt a lot of shame around it. And so when I first started telling that story resonates from a vulnerability standpoint, like giving other entrepreneurs like, hey, you can be vulnerable. And then I talk about how I shared that story, and it kind of opened up these new opportunities for me. And that relates at one stage of my business to a specific audience about being vulnerable in your business is okay, giving permission. However, now that I am running an AI company that has a SaaS tool, I'm the same person. That story still happened. That story still shaped me and changed how I view the world. But that story is not going to resonate in the same way to maybe the people that I'm drawing into my AI storytelling platform. However, I can still use it, but I would often switch the messaging a little bit. So rather than it being about, it's okay for, you to be vulnerable, I might use that as like a blanket example of how it's okay to be yourself in the world, or it's okay to show up fully as you in your workplace or in your business. So it's the same message, but I'm slightly tweaking it because it's a different audience. So it's like me recognizing that I have to also evolve my own storytelling, because also most of the time you are not the same person running your business year 4 than you were year 1. And so even you've evolved, you've become someone different. And so if you're still telling that same story, that was still absolutely true. But if you haven't evolved it slightly, or maybe added just some, maybe fresh perspective on it now that you're 4 years into your business, for example, like you risk it coming up it across like maybe a little vanilla, or people just feel the energy of like, this just isn't actually resonating because you're actually not really resonating with it anymore either.
That I appreciate every single word you've said, because I have been there. I was the person who, started the business in the spare room of my rental at, an apartment I was renting at the time. And I shared that story a lot. And in the first couple of years, it got us into the media. It was, people resonated like, yes, I'm just like you. Now I've been in business for decades, literally, and I've grown multiple businesses. I've worked with teams. I've been through different economic cycles. I've had online businesses, offline businesses, product businesses, service businesses. I've had teams of up to 45 people. I'm a totally different person than that woman. And so even who I will appeal to is very, very different. One, because of my age, or my story is different. And if I was still, trying to tell my founder story, I started baking cookies and now I'm selling cookies. It just, like you said, it's not who I am. And it also isn't speaking to who I'm becoming and the future that I want for myself. And I want to come back to that idea is about speaking to who we want to become and having our story move us forward rather than just calling on our past. Could you speak a little bit to that?
So, sorry, can you rephrase that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So here I am in my business. Okay. I have a business. I'm creating revenue. I have a small team. Where I want to be is someone different level of success. I have goals. I have aspirations. I want to walk into becoming her. How does my story or the way I tell it help me move into who I want to become?
Okay, so look, there's lots of ways I could answer this question, and depending who you talk to, if you ask that question, there would be different answers. But the first thing that came into my mind when you said that is there is something really relatable and comforting when we witness another person's journey that might not be where they are, that might not be where they want to become yet. And let me just give this a bit of context. Like, so often when, and you know, I think as women, because we've had to operate differently in society quite often to get to different levels of business success. And, you know, it's a lot of the odds are stacked against us in many ways. So as a result, women are told, actually, no, you do not be your full self. That's dangerous. Or no, you're too emotional. Or no, you hold back. You blend, or you try to be more masculine. And so I'm not saying everyone, but if I'm being highly general, we have this idea that our stories are only worth sharing when they are supporting a certain metric of success or a certain society brand of success. And only then can we start telling our stories. But what's happening is when you go in with that mentality of, well, I will only tell stories when I have become who I want to become, you are missing the good stuff. You are actually missing all that stuff that connects with someone and actually makes someone want to root for you. You know, I use this example because you go on LinkedIn and I get like hives every time I see it, but you know, you have everyone, you know, if they win an award or if they've gotten asked to speak at a conference, by the way, you absolutely need to promote yourself. So I'm all about that, but give me a break that you are humbled and you're so honored and every post starts the same way about how you're humbled and you're so shocked, because quite often you have not brought us on your journey. And all of a sudden people are just shouting out their accolades. But if you bring someone along for the ride, and I mean the real ride, like if you let people in on the harder moments that you've had in your business, the stuff where you made mistakes, the stuff where, you know, maybe you made like a dumb decision, your people are going to be rooting for you hard when you get to that level of success, or when you do get an award. People are going to be like, yes, you deserve that. So I always say, like, wherever you want to become, great, bring us along for that ride, because you don't like wake up one day and are like, oh, high five, like I'm here. That's not how it works. Like, it's a constantly sliding scale. So you have, my mind is not share when I feel safe and like it'll be taken well. I always say like let's share the journey, even the hard stuff, because I'm probably going to help a lot more people in that moment than when I share when I get to like this crowning achievement. Like, I don't know how you got there. That's not helping me.
Oh, that sounds scary. As someone who's been guilty of, you know, like going, okay, I'm going to keep all the difficult things under here, and what I'm going to show you is this.
You're Australian. You guys like get up at any time of the day, you travel everywhere. Like, that's not scary. Like, you guys are like a different. I always say Australians, like, they're so interesting. They just do different things. So yeah, that's not scary.
That's so funny. That's so funny. And I know certainly for me, I, you know, as I said, I've been in business for decades. And there's been a lot of downs and there's been some really amazing ups. But, you know, when you looked at my LinkedIn profile, it's the highs. It's, I'm not sharing the lows so much. And when I came across, this is a little bit of a diversion from the conversation, but when I came across your work, Patrice, I was in a real hole. My dad had just passed away. I was overseas at the time. He was overseas at the time. There were a lot of family complications, just logistics to work out because he passed while he was traveling. And I came across your work, and I had to be creating some content at the time for her business. And I was in no state to be inspiring and be like, yeah, we can do it. And I actually dug into my own personal story of my upbringing and my heritage and my culture. I come from a Greek background, and I spoke some stories that I would never have thought were good to share in a business context. And I didn't do it for the clicks or the likes, but it just resonated with so many more people who had come from different cultures or had family things that needed to be untangled or that had experienced grief. And those are stories that, as a business mentor, as a business coach, I would thought nobody came here to hear that. So why would I be telling that story? And so I felt a little indulgent, but I really trusted your work and thought, okay, just share it and see what happens. It was healing for me, but then it also resonated with others. And I wanted to share that with you.
Thank you for sharing that with me. And that's the whole point, yes, we're running businesses, and yes, we want to make money, and yes, people that run businesses are a special level of crazy. You have to be a little delusional because it's hard and you have to actually believe that you're capable of doing it. So we're all a little crazy. So I get that, the sharing of ourselves is not maybe taught or that the obvious thing, but yet we're all just humans, right? And I know it's so cliche, but it is true. Like even, the most successful people that I know or that I look up to, they've often had some of the hardest journeys to get there, or they've had struggle, or they've had tragedy. I always feel like people that, have had a lot of tragedy in childhood or have had to really overcome, because so much of running a business is grit. So much of it is showing up like you did when you don't feel like showing up. But that's when you have to show up, is when you don't feel like showing up. But if we're going to be robots, then that's hard to show up. But if we give ourselves permission to be our full human selves, and I get it, it's business. Like there's always going to be maybe a slight veneer, right? No one wants to maybe vomit every skeleton in your closet to your future customer clientele. But how amazing. Like, why can't that be more of the narrative? Like, why does it have to be this other way when we're all doing this and it's hard? And probably a lot of us have families, or we're caring for other people, whether they're children or parents or different situations. It's like, why do we have to hide that? Like, we are not in the 50s anymore where we clock in, clock out. Here's my work life. Here's my personal life. Like, it's just, that's not how we work anymore. It's different. And I remember Richard Branson, actually, one of my all-time mentors, saying, and he's lived such a rich life. And he says, I never think about my work life and my home life. I have one life. I have this many days on the planet. I want to use them as best I can. And that really speaks to what you just said. I want to talk about authority. A lot of our women, they're showing up as leaders. They want to be leaders in their industry, and usually they've got a ton of expertise. I remember speaking to one woman, she'd been a speech pathologist for 20 years, and yet she didn't feel like she was an authority, and was like, come on, you have 20 years of experience of helping people. And so how do we use our story, or whatever it is that you suggest, to be seen and recognized in our industry for the experience and the authority that we do have, but perhaps we're a little shy to express or don't know how to express? Yeah, that's a good question. And that's a lot of people where they can be the biggest experts. And I feel like sometimes the longer you're in business and the more you've done stuff, logically you should feel like, oh, I've got this. But yet again, it's almost like because you become more humble, you actually know as you do more business how much you don't know and how much there is to learn. And so there's sort of this really, arc where you need that naivete when you start a business, because if you knew what you we're going to go through, you might not do it. So I actually think that like brazen, like, yeah, like whatever, like, that's great. You need that, you need that childlike, just run through walls energy. And so I do actually think sometimes it gets harder as you get into it, and I've seen people actually retract in their authority, even though they are absolute experts at what they do.
Yeah.
And, I think what I always tell myself is that, as long as you are, being, I think in integrity, right? Like as long as you know that you do know your stuff, that stuff comes through, and no one is looking for facts, right? Like I feel that we forget that we're emotional creatures, and human beings, we respond to emotion. We're not logical, like not really, right? So I feel that, there's that, and I'm not woo, but I'm not trying to get woo, but I do think there's like an energy, like when you're watching someone or you're scrolling on social and something just seems off or icky, I feel like we sense that. Like we're smart. We've been around the block now for a while with internet. Like we kind of can suss out when someone is like, you don't know what you're talking about, or that, like, that's not really, I don't think that's really true. So I think it becomes harder to hide behind that if you really aren't, like that
for the long term, for sure. Like you can fake it for a little bit, but like you said, it's and you can be all the woo you want with me. I'm good. Yes, you can feel it.
You can feel it. And that's the thing. It's like, I think sure, to your point, can you fake people out for a little bit? Absolutely. But this is also why the power of storytelling is so needed now and necessary, because, we have all these AI programs now, and we have all these, we're in a trust deficit, right? We don't trust anything that's in front of our face. But it is really hard to, like, you and we're talking, we're having a conversation. This is not a bot. This is not like a script. We're not like staring at a prompter. Like, this is us. And so the more of this that you do, that's how you connect. And that's really hard to then fake. So really the anecdote to, well, how do I get more authority? It's like, well, you really just have to put your ideas out there, or put out that big idea you have, or what are your thoughts that maybe are a little bit atypical about your industry, but you really believe. I always teach, the people in my storytelling programs, like, what is it about your industry that you believe that other people might question or be like, really, like, what is your unique perspective because of how you were raised, or how you were as a child, or how your family dynamic was? Like, that shapes us, and that shapes how we actually run our businesses, whether we realize it or not. And so quite often, like when we're running businesses, whatever industry we're in, even if your take on, let's say, health, like, oh, you should eat your protein, but if you take your personal experience on like why you believe that, and it actually has to do with the time that this happened to you and this happened to you, and then when you ate protein, this is what happened, like your perspective on it becomes unique. But people only know that if you share that and you put that out there. So that's why I think the easiest way to start is quite often with personal storytelling, because no one can take that from you. No one can copy that. Your personal storytelling in the moments in your life, only you experienced. So that is like your secret special IP sauce.
Oh, well, let's talk about AI then, because, with AI, as business owners especially, I see a lot of women are using it now, and one of the ways they're using it is with their content, and whether that's emails, podcast scripts, proposals, all the things. And so we can ask ChatGPT to, write an email, write a story, create a reel script for us, whatever the content is that is our messaging. And it all sounds the same. And I can pick it a mile away usually.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't want women to do that. And I'm sure you don't want women to do that. But you've got an AI platform. So tell us, how do we marry that using technology and the power of AI, and then having our humanity and our real stories come together?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to sort of preface this, a couple of weeks ago, there was an article that came out in Forbes or Fortune that the highest paid profession after the AI engineer coders in Anthropic's, OpenAI, and Netflix is a storyteller. They're hiring storytellers for up to $500,000 a year. And what I say to that is when you have the leading tech companies that are effectively shaping our society as we speak now, when they are signaling that actually the storyteller is the most important person after the builder, that tells you something. And that is something that we as business owners now need to take into account. And so, I mean, look, this is my world. This is what I breathe. And now, yes, I have an AI tool right now, my Story Pro, and I have a community. But the reason that we have this is because of what didn't exist. Like, we were all using ChatGPT. I still use ChatGPT. So it's not like I have anything against platforms. But the problem with these LLMs is that their purpose is not to make you, Susie, like a better storyteller. It's not to make you show up in the best, most emotionally resonant way possible. Their goal is just to give you the output that you want as quickly and efficiently as possible. Efficiency is the name of the game, and speed. And efficiency and speed are great, but it's actually really not great if you are trying to get to like a deeper part of something, or if you're trying to like uncover the essence or the soul of a brand or of a project or what you believe. Like, that's not speed and efficiency. That actually takes like some slow, intentional digging. And the AI wasn't digging. It doesn't care if I dig. So when we created this, it really was to force friction upon us humans, because AI is taking away this friction. And what we're seeing now is like, friction is good. Friction is when you have a crappy first draft and you're like, oh, that's not that good. Let me go try again. Or, oh, that video kind of sucked, but I can do better. Like, right now, we're actually actively making human beings skip these crucial beginner steps of being uncomfortably bad, so you can then revise your thought process or do something different. We're taking that away. And when you take that away, it's why you don't like when you see AI stuff, because it's creepy. It's missing meaning. And so this is why we really back-ended into this. I did not intend to start an AI thing. This happened completely by accident. But because we believe in this without AI, that's what I teach. It's like, to be a good storyteller, this is not a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Like, this is we're going to get deep, we're going to get uncomfortable, but we're going to unlock some stuff, because that then is going to like make you better and make you like more confident in standing in front of your business as the authority that you are. And so that is what we need to remind ourselves, that as human beings, yes, we're using AI and it's amazing, but we cannot be a passenger in that. We really have to maintain like the driver's seat and have agency. And part of that agency is making sure that we just don't take what AI gives us as face value. And we're like, oh, cool, I'm going to post that. Or cool, I'm going to send that pitch proposal that it just spat out in 5 seconds. It's like, wait, hold up, wait a minute. Like, we need to back up a little bit. And so that's the AI that we do. And also humans, human beings, live, real human beings communing in a group or on a Zoom room, doing this, or you telling me a story about your dad, and like, maybe we can talk about what might resonate the most. Like, that human interaction is always going to be more insightful than oftentimes like going GPT. So we decided to marry the two, like AI, but also we have this human community element where we teach and we have office hours, and we do this with people that use our tool.
I love it. I want to. I love it. I could talk to you.
I get like so passionate about it because, it's like, really, we don't really want the world of AI that's being served to us. Like, we don't really want that.
No. I mean, it's so convenient, as you said, but that inquiry, that digging, that going a little deeper, it's kind of, I mean, I hope the bots don't get me. It's kind of too dumb to inquire, to actually dig deeper, to get to the bit that is going to be the individual output. Because if you and your competitor are putting the same questions into ChatGPT today, you're likely getting a similar output because there's no part of you in that. So we're listening. We're ready to lead differently, to show up differently. We're not sure where to start. What is the single most powerful decision we need to make about our own story that would have us start to now show up more powerfully, communicate more with more authority, and start to create leverage in our business because our story is opening doors for us? So that was a long question.
Yeah.
The crux of it is, what is the single most important decision we need to make about our own story if we're going to change the way that we're showing up as a leader?
I would say that the most important part is you realizing that your story is worthy of being told. No matter where you are in your business, no matter where you are in your life, no matter where you came from, that we all, I don't want to say we all, but many people carry shame that is residual from, past traumas. And, different people have different levels of trauma, but it's that shame keeps people from not being who they fully are. And some people die never really being able to be who they are. And so that's such a travesty. And so I think the first step before you can just go out and all right, I'm going to start storytelling, you really have to, and look, and this is sometimes a longer process because it takes some mental repetition, but you have to believe that what you have to say is worthy of being heard. And once you can cross that, then it's just a matter of all right, what do you want to be known for? What do you, I'm doing this right now. I'm kicking off a program, this is, my tomorrow. So I don't know when this is airing, but it's 10 women and it's all about what is your big idea in 2026. And it's not I want to make women healthy. It's how do we use your origin story? How do we use your quirky and different perspective on your industry? And how do we use what your audience is really struggling with? And how do we bring that all together into this big idea? But in order for these women to even get in my program, they would have had to have believed first that it had nothing to do with me, that they needed to start getting out there. And it's the people that you can't really get out there in a meaningful way if you don't think that you're worthy of sharing it, or that even if it's one person that hears you, that's all it matters. I'm not talking about having an audience of 1 million people, but as long as you believe that, even if I think my story isn't that great or impressive, if I think that it could possibly inspire or move one other person that needs to hear it, that's enough for me. I'm going to start. That's that's the first step.
I love how you're marrying a number of things. But they have to start with that belief that there's a kernel of something there that has to come out, and then you create a pathway for that.
Yeah. And you also have to be okay. And I just want to say too, like anything in business, and your audience will know that because you're always learning. It's a never ending, PhD when you run a business. It's there's always another PhD to learn the next week. Just when you finished with the other one is, you're not going to be great at this at first. I know people that have been telling their story for years, but they weren't that good at it. So it wasn't resonating, or they were choosing the wrong moment to focus on, or they actually were not telling it in the way that they should have been telling it. So, part of this process as well is realizing Sure. Mentally get to a place where you're like, all right, I need to start doing this. Like, it's actually more annoying that I'm not out there telling stories than it is me sitting around in my head thinking about how, like, oh, I can't do this. You know, but once you get past that, the second part is like, oh, this is not going to be pretty. This is hard. But it's not harder than starting your business. That's way harder. The decision to start a business or to leave a corporate job or to bet on yourself, that is the hardest thing any of us have ever done. And so everything after that is just like, well, we're here. So if you're doing it, like, let's just go balls to the wall. Like, I wish there's another phrase for that. I don't know what.
Especially in a community of women, but I get it. I
don't ever say balls to the wall, but I have 3 boys. Like, I just am like, go all at it because, starting the business, I think that is the hardest move is like, am I going to start a business or am I going to play it safe and stay in my corporate job? Or am I going to go after my dream? That's way harder than going out and telling your story. So you've already done like much harder stuff.
I love it. At Her Business, our tagline is your business, your rules. I'd love to know for you as a business owner, how does that reflect how you approach running your own business? Let's start there. And then the follow-up is how does owning your story and having a way to tell it allow you to more so play by your own rules? Tricky.
Okay. Repeat the first part again.
For you, the idea of your business, your rules, how does that show up in how you run your business? Because you had a corporate career, you're a TV producer, you've got this wonderful corporate background, you now have this SaaS platform. How are you creating a business that is by your rules?
Oh God. Well, I mean, rules this is why I'm not in corporate. Like, rules were never my thing. I could never play that game very well. I was always like this close to getting fired always. Even when I was at the top of my game at the Today Show, I'm like, I'm getting fired this week. So rules has always been something I've struggled with. But I think one of my mantras, like if someone is like, what are your like values, right? One of my main values, and this might sound frivolous, but it's actually fun.
Love it.
Yeah. Like, and fun is something like if you ask my, Valentine's Day, right? I just got Valentine's Day cards, and, my oldest is I have 3 boys, 12, 9, and 5. And they always write me cards and they're always like, this is what I love about my mom the most. And it's always like, you're so fun. And so I do think that like, I try to run my business like, this is fun. Nothing matters more than I feel like how my people are feeling, And so I think that energy is really reflected in everything that I do, I just for example, I have a woman on my team right now that's going through really messy custody stuff with her children. She has 4 kids and we were in the middle of a launch and all these things and she has a huge role. And when I found this out, I was like, get out of my business right now. Like, this does not matter. Like, the only thing that matters is like your children and how you feel. And are you getting like, so and that's kind of how I roll. Like nothing, like, I've had people on my team for years. I've never hired anyone. And you don't know this until you do this, but like, I'm really good at hiring people. Like, I love everyone on my team. I've never had a bad hire. I've never had someone where I haven't like trusted them. Like, people come on my team and they will go through what they will go above and beyond. I don't even ask them. I'm like, why are you doing this on a Saturday? And they're like, no. Like, I want to get this done, So I just think that my rules would say, oh, you shouldn't do that, or you're the boss, or, you need to be a bit more like, I don't know, just like, I'm not very like traditional bossy, I'm like, just, I feel that I don't feel better than my team. I don't feel like I'm on a pedestal. I don't feel like I even know more. I feel like I can learn from you. So I don't know. I do think there's an element of that humility of bringing that. And I think also me living in another country with my family, I've been living in Lisbon for 2.5 years. We moved from New York in 2023. Like, I'm an immigrant in this country. I am, you're, especially in New York and America, you're like, oh, you're this, you're that. It's like, no. Like this world is so huge. So I'm very conscious of just trying to be like, respectful of the culture and in the language. I'm really bad at Portuguese. My kids are fluent. I'm trying to learn like that type of stuff. I think about that a lot. And also when you're in storytelling, people come to you and they trust you with honestly some of the hardest things about themselves. Like I cannot tell you how many women founders I've had in my program that are like, I literally have never shared this, not even with my therapist. And yet here I am unpeeling this story because I think I create like these safe spaces for people. And that's also why, honestly, my AI stuff is doing so well because everyone says they come to my AI and they're like, I feel like I'm being hugged or I feel cozy or I feel like I can tell my story pro or Pocket Patrice this stuff and I'm not being judged. I'm like, well, yeah, because that's how I am in my normal life. Yeah, sorry, that's like a long answer, but I've never actually thought about that in my entire life until you asked that. So I'm kind of just riffing on the spot, but that is kind of what's coming from my heart.
And that's it, right? It's like you're being true to what's coming from your heart about this is the sort of business I want. I don't want to feel like I'm above my team. I'm going to treat them in a way where they want to do the extra work, or I'm going to you're just being your product. You're just being real and telling your story and not trying to put on a professional Patrice face because here we are interviewing for a leadership summit. I love it. Thank you so much. That is your business by your rules. And that fun, I mean, that's how, like if that's your value, if business isn't fun, you've been questioning, like, is this the right product or service? Is this, one of our other taglines is do what you love every day. That's kind of our main thing at Her Business. And it's like, some days are going to be good, some days are not going to be good. But if you were having fun fewer days than you are having fun, then you would obviously question, am I doing the right thing? But so that's one of your rules. It's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to grow this business. I'm going to help all these women. I'm going to help tell stories and I'm going to have a bloody good time doing it,
Yeah. And that's not to say that things like we don't have hard moments or like I get it wrong. Like I had to apologize to my VA the other day because I thought, something happened and it was my fault. And I realized that after the call and I messaged her. I'm like, I am so sorry. That was my fault. Like so it's not about perfection. But it's about, again, like, I think when you come at business, like from a mentality of this should be fun, unless you really are curing cancer, like nothing is that urgent, right? Like nothing is life or death. Like, unless you are working in life or death, organization. But I think I always think about that, like when things happen or when launches don't go well. I had actually right before my Story Pro happened, it came out of a failed launch. So that was not a plan, but I had a failed launch. Like I failed. It was not a failure, but it did not monetarily go the way that I thought it was going to go. Yeah. And I think when you're sort of having that mentality, like, well, is someone dying? Like, and by the way, I am we are a double income family. So this is not like I'm like twirling my hair. It doesn't matter. Like at the time when I was doing this, I was actually breadwinning because my husband was completely figuring out another career path in Lisbon. So there was a lot of financial pressure on me. But I think when you have that mentality at the core that this is fun, then it alleviates some of these harder moments that are inevitable and happen weekly, right? Hard moments happen weekly. It just makes it like not so bad. I don't know. It's like, we're going to be fine.
We're going to be fine. Thank you so much. I have loved this conversation. And what our listeners don't know is that we did this interview about a week ago and we had some tech glitches. And I want to thank you so much for being willing to come back and have this conversation again. I think this is a better conversation.
Actually. I don't know. I don't know what's better. I guess the audience will never know.
I want to thank you. Thank you for bringing it. And we're going to give people details of how they can contact you in just a couple of minutes. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
No. I mean, the only thing I want to leave it with is like, we need more of your stories. You know, I know you have a women's summit, and right now the architects of AI and the people running the show are men, and they are monolithic, most of them, in mentality and how they view the world. And so that is a really dangerous place to be, given the consequences of what AI is. So we need women to get dirty, and we need women to just like not be scared of AI. And no matter how you start, even if it's like a menu planning thing, great. But like we need women to be curious. We need women to start building. We need women to like get dirty, because we cannot give this over to the people permanently who are helming this. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you. I was thrilled to share this with you, to share Patrice Polzer with you and her brilliance. And to close out today, I wanted to say that we are in the middle of a massive shift. Business is changing, marketing is changing, everything is changing, and it's changing really, really quickly. And it's tempting to think that the answer is to get better technology or stay on top of all the AI tools and outproduce the algorithm. But just as Patrice has shared with us today, that is not how we stand out in an overcrowded market. It's not how we truly connect with our customers and clients. And the leaders who are going to remain relevant, truly relevant and desirable, are the ones who go deeper into what makes them human. And I know there's vulnerability about that. I totally do. But the ones who are willing to connect the dots of their own story, the ones who lead not from a polished brand persona, but from a clear, honest, and evolving point of view, they're the leaders that are going to connect with clients and customers. So what is the story that your business needs you to tell right now? Not the one that got you to this point, but the one that is going to take you to where you want to go next. I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode of with Patrice. I'm so thrilled to be sharing her wisdom with more and more women business owners. In our show notes, I'm going to tell you how you can get in touch with her, and you definitely want to do the trial of her My Story Pro software. It's mind-blowing. And so check out all those details at herbusiness.com/355. I would love to hear your thoughts. As I said, you can DM me on Instagram. You can send us an email. You can do whatever you like, but I'd love to hear. If you'd like to leave a review, you can do that wherever you're listening. It not only helps the show, but it helps us get these episodes into the ears of more women business owners who are searching for great information, great connections, and a community like the one we have here at Her Business. Now, speaking of reviews, I want to shout out one of our fabulous Her Business Network members, Lydia Diane, who left this review recently. And Lydia, I might have just botched up your last name. She has a business called Karma Life. She's an active member since she joined the network, and she helps those over 40 who are stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, and looking for meaning and purpose in their life. She does that with holistic online programs and spirituality coaching. And she said this. She said, Susie's podcast offers great guidance for my business that I can really resonate with. It gets me out of my head and into an overview, a bird's eye view that gives me lots of aha moments. I get to stand back and look at how my business is unfolding and how it can be integrated into my whole life with more ease. And she goes on with this incredible testimonial, which I'm going to put on our show notes page because it's fantastic. As I said, she's a member of the Her Business Network, where she and hundreds of other women business owners are creating and growing their businesses by their rules, with the support of a powerful community. And if you would like to join our community, head over to herbusinessnetwork.com now to apply. As I said, you can learn more about Patrice, you can learn more about us over at herbusiness.com/355. Make this the year that you connect with your clients and with yourself in a totally different way. As I said, if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a rating or review. You can connect with us at Instagram over at Her Business. And if you're new to the show, be sure to hit follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. And join us for the next episode for more inspiring stories and lessons from successful entrepreneurs. You're amazing. I'll see you next week right here on the Her Business podcast. Bye for now.